He came from nothing, not in the poetic, exaggerated sense people often use, but in the raw, uncomfortable truth of the word. His world was a small, forgotten corner, where dreams were considered luxuries, and survival was the only daily goal. The house he grew up in had thin walls, a leaky roof, and nights filled with the sound of hunger rather than lullabies. Music was never something he was supposed to have. There were no lessons, no instruments polished with care, no parents who could afford to say, "Follow your passion." Instead, there were long days of labor, worn-out shoes, and a childhood shaped by responsibility far too heavy for a boy his age. Yet in the middle of all that hardship, music found him anyway. It slipped through cracked radios, echoed from passing cars, and lived in his imagination when the world around him felt unbearably small. While others slept, he listened, memorizing melodies, teaching himself chords on borrowed guitars, and singing quietly, so no one would hear the vulnerability in his voice. Music became his escape, his prayer, and his secret promise to himself that life could be more than this. By the time he stood on that stage, he carried more than nerves. He carried years of silent struggle, rejection, and self-doubt. The bright lights felt foreign, almost cruel, compared to the darkness he came from. The judges looked at him with polite curiosity, not knowing the weight of the journey that had led him there. To them, he was just another contestant with a hopeful smile and a story they'd heard 1,000 times before. But for him, this moment was everything. This wasn't just an audition. It was a crossroads between the life he knew and the life he dared to believe in. When he said he would sing Hotel California, a song legendary for its complexity and emotional depth, skepticism rippled through the room. It was a risky choice, too iconic, too difficult, too easy to ruin. You could see it in the judges' expressions. Doubt mixed with expectation. The audience shifted in their seats. Some prepared for disappointment. Others braced for something unexpected. And then, with one deep breath, he closed his eyes and began. The first notes changed everything. His voice didn't just sing the song, it lived inside it. There was a haunting quality, a raw honesty that made the lyrics feel new again. Each line carried the weight of his past, each note trembling with emotion that couldn't be faked or rehearsed. It wasn't perfect in a technical sense, but it was devastatingly real. The pain, the longing, the quiet resilience, it all poured out in a way that silenced the room. The judges leaned forward. The audience stopped breathing. This wasn't a performance anymore. It was a confession. You could hear the years of hardship in his tone, the nights of loneliness, the dreams he never dared to speak out loud. When he reached the chorus, his voice cracked, not from weakness, but from truth. And in that crack was something far more powerful than perfection, authenticity. The song became a mirror, reflecting not just his story, but the struggles of everyone listening. As the performance continued, the transformation was undeniable. The boy who walked onto the stage with nothing but hope was slowly becoming something else. An artist, a storyteller, a force. The judges' faces shifted from doubt to disbelief, then to quiet admiration. One wiped away a tear. Another shook their head in stunned silence. The audience, once restless, was now completely still, as if any movement might break the fragile magic unfolding in front of them. This was the kind of moment talent shows dream of but rarely capture, the kind that feels unscripted, unrepeatable, and deeply human. When he sang the final lines, his voice soared with a fragile strength that felt earned, not given. And as the last note faded into silence, there was a brief moment where no one moved. No applause, no cheers, just shock. Then the room erupted. The applause wasn't just loud. It was emotional, grateful, almost desperate, as if everyone knew they had just witnessed something rare. In that instant, his life split into two parts, before the song, and after it. The judges stood, not because they were required to, but because they couldn't help themselves. Their words, when they finally came, were filled with awe and sincerity. They didn't just praise his voice, they honored his journey. They spoke about courage, about resilience, about how music has the power to give voice to the voiceless. For the first time, someone looked at him not as a poor boy from nowhere, but as someone who belonged on that stage. And for him, that validation meant more than fame or money ever could. It meant that the years of struggle were not invisible, that his pain had a purpose, that his voice mattered. In the crowd, strangers cried, not because of the song alone, but because it reminded them of their own battles, their own dreams deferred and revived. He didn't just sing Hotel California. He turned it into a doorway, one that led him out of the life he was trapped in and into a future he never thought possible. That night didn't erase his past, but it redefined it. His story became proof that greatness doesn't always come from privilege, and that sometimes the most powerful voices are born in silence and struggle. He came from nothing, yes, but he brought with him something far greater than talent. He brought truth, heart, and a reminder that dreams don't care where you come from. Long after the stage lights dimmed and the applause faded, that performance continued to live on, shared and replayed by millions who saw themselves in his journey. And somewhere out there, another kid with nothing but a broken guitar and a quiet dream listened and believed that change was possible.